Hey everyone, this is Max at MaxyTCG. Thank you for joining me in another video. So in this video, we're going to be going over spell and trap cards so that we can understand how to go about playing them in a game. So we'll kind of go through the card anatomy on both of these. They do have pretty much the same type of card anatomy to one another, and it's going to be pretty similar to the monster cards. So once you have those down, this will be a lot simpler. So section 1 is the card name. Section 2 is the card type. Section 3 is the icon. Section 4 is the card description. And Section 5 is the card number. So again, card name is just going to tell you what the card name is. The type will tell you if it's a spell or trap card. The icon will also indicate if it's a spell or trap card. The description will tell you what the card does. And the card number, again, will tell you what set the card came from. So in this example, we're just going to be focusing on normal spells and normal trap cards. There are different types of spells and trap cards that have somewhat of a unique function to how they work in comparison to one another and what they do. But for this, we're just going to keep to the normal spells and traps. And when we go through the rulebook, we'll cover all the different types in more detail. But once you understand the difference between spells and traps, the other types shouldn't be too difficult to understand. Okay, so we'll jump into spell cards. So spells are mostly proactive cards that you use on your turn to gain advantage in resources and to win in battles against your opponent. Spell cards can be activated by placing them face up in the spell and trap zone immediately. There are different types of spell and traps that have different roles and functions. So in this case, we're looking at Pot of Greed, a card that says draw 2 cards. That's some of the most iconic cards in the Yugioh anime. But now this card is banned due to how good it is in Yu-Gi-Oh! Since Yu-Gi-Oh! Does not have a resource system, the ability to add free cards to your hand, in this case this would be a +1, where you're activating 1 card and you get 2. So when you subtract the fact that you activated 1 card from the 2 cards you get, it's an inherent +1. And you can do so much with just 1 card in Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, that these types of cards are just unfair. And even though they might make decks that aren't as good a little better, they'll make the decks that are really good even more insane. So a lot like Pot of Greed, for example, is a card that's banned and will probably never come off the ban list due to the fact of how good it is. So this spell card is something that you can activate immediately on your turn to get advantage by getting more resources. Different cards will do different things. Sometimes it will search a card to your hand, making your deck more consistent. It can allow you to draw into more cards, which in its own way is a form of resource and consistency. But with drawing, you won't have the advantage of getting the cards you need specifically. But sometimes some decks more want the amount of cards, and it's literally searching a specific card. They can also lower a monster's attack points, negate effects. There's really quite diverse and probably one of the best cards in the game. And there are some decks in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! That focus more on spell cards than they do monsters. And there's some decks that focus more on traps than they do monsters. But usually monsters is the key component, but spells are usually the second best, if not some of the most powerful in the game. And now we'll move on to trap cards. So trap cards are mostly reactive cards that you use on your opponent's turn, since they must be set face down for a turn before using them. These cards are good at interacting with your opponent's plays, limiting what they can do. There are different types of trap cards, and they have different roles and functions. Unlike spell cards, trap cards have to be set face down before using them for a turn. They're kind of similar to a normal set. If you set a monster face down, you have to wait a turn before flipping it face up. It's a similar idea, and they serve a similar function. Set trap cards are meant to be traps, something your opponent has to walk into. Same with a set monster. There is an aspect of fear that comes with a set monster since you don't know what it is. So it's harder to play around. In modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, trap cards have been phased out quite a bit due to the fact of how fast the game has gotten, but there are decks that focus on trap cards and make use of them and allow you to play them, and there are some trap cards that you can even activate from your hand the turn you have them if you meet certain conditions, and a few of these in the game are some of the best because of how they function. Again, just remember that your spell cards are something used on your turn to kind of help you gain resources, gain advantages over your opponents in battle, get extra cards, where trap cards are something you're kind of usually setting and waiting to use to interact with your opponent to try to help stop what they're going to do during their turn. So there's a little bit of interaction on both sides of the game, on your turn and your opponent's. Right, so that covers the difference between spell and trap cards. Again, there are different types, and if you go through my rulebook or the Konami Rulebook, you can see what the different cards are and understand how they work. And we will get to those once we go through the rulebook step by step. I hope that was helpful, and if it was, make sure to join in for the next video. We're going to go over the Let the Duel Begin section. So we're going to just cover the basic components of how to win a duel, preparing for the duel, and then the turn structure, so you actually understand how the turn lays out and how it works when you're playing back and forth with your opponent. This section is pretty short in terms of what's written, but I want to go a little bit more in depth the turn structures to kind of explain how they work and how to go about communicating with your opponent. Right? Like I said, if that was helpful, like, comment, and subscribe for future videos, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.